Welcome back, folks, to Discerning Spirits, the show where we talk Enneagram types over classic cocktails. As per usual, I am your bartender, Dan Prevette.
I am your bar patron, Colton Simmons, and today we're talking about Type 7, the Enthusiast. Dan, what are we making today?
Colton, when thinking about Type 7s, the Enthusiast, I knew it had to be a cocktail that was fun, vibrant, vivacious, and the life of the party. And that can really only be one cocktail, the Margarita. As is probably apparent, I love margaritas, so we've got a little bit of tequila left and we're gonna make it work. But margaritas are fantastic, and honestly, they get a little bit of a bad reputation. A lot of people get a bad one and they don't feel so great the next day, and they think of it as being like kind of a party cocktail. But the margarita we're gonna do today, super classic, super refreshing, and super simple. Some fresh squeezed lime, a little bit of orange liqueur, and some simple white tequila. All right, my friend, Type 7, the Enthusiast, margaritas.
Cheers, bro.
Cheers.
Margs. How come no salt?
That's a great question. I appreciate you asking that. I actually have no problem with salt at all. And my theory behind the cocktail is that salt was introduced as a way to deal with subpar products. It originally, I've heard that said that it was used as a way of like, you needed a counter flavor to the overly sweet, super sugary stuff in like margarita mix.
Yeah.
I have no problem throwing a little bit of salt on there. It is a nice contrast with the tequila and the lime, but I mean, as you tasted, this shouldn't be overly sweet. Also, we cheersed and I didn't take a sip, so one of us had bad luck for years.
That's on you, brother. I think with the salt would be indicative of the 8-wing, perhaps. A little bit more salty of a personality, not to be too cliche.
Interesting. Okay, well, let's get into it a little bit. My thinking behind the margarita as the 7. Honestly, there's no need to get too deep into it. What says party more like a margarita?
Yeah.
And when I think of 7s, I think of the life of the party.
Yep.
They're good times, high energy,
yeah,
always having fun, chasing a fun thing. Can be a little Peter Panish.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that margaritas, similar to daiquiris in that way, in that they kind of have a bit of a bad reputation.
That's a good comparison because 7 and 3s get mistyped all the time.
I think that margaritas have been bastardized and become one of those mass-produced blender cocktails. And I think a lot of people think of margaritas as being sort of a tacky, low-quality drink.
Yeah.
Which is really just a matter of the freshness and quality of the ingredients in it, which seems true for the Type 7 as well. So let's talk a little bit about that.
I actually love that metaphor because as a 1, I go to 7 in health or integration. So I feel like I have an intimate connection with the positives of the 7 and all of those stereotypes. Like the Enneagram is just rife for stereotyping already. And we're doing that a bit in this whole, platform.
We've got to have a show.
Yeah, we got to have a show. And so I think 7s probably get the brunt of stereotypes because their stereotype actually, I would say, prevents people from appreciating their depth. Because 7s are kind of like the pioneers of FOMO, they always want to be involved in what else is going on, whatever's new, whatever's exciting. But people forget that they're in the head triad and they are thinkers, they are perceivers, they are absorbing knowledge and information. They're a perfect connoisseur of the combination of pleasurable and effective. If you can mix those two things, 7s are all about it.
Maximizing the good time.
Yeah, maximizing the good time. It's a good time, but it's also, it means something. I think in the unhealthy ranges where they get that stereotype, the blended margarita, the shitty one, where it's just like, yeah, you just want a good time for the sake of a good time. But the 7s become beloved because their good time can often mean something more than just the good time.
what is that core desire, and what is that core struggle, that core sin, that core fear?
Yeah, so they have their core desire is essentially to experience the world, and their core fear is to be trapped or be stuck in pain. So sevens kind of get that 7 deadly sins. Theirs would be gluttony, more. That's their driver, is they don't want to miss out on something. They want a full life well lived, and they're very independent creatures by nature. So that drives them to kind of suck the marrow out of life as an individual, to get the most that they can possibly get, because life is beautiful, life is special, life is unique. There's always something new and mysterious to explore. They have this kind of joyful adventurousness, and that's their gift to the world.
Yeah.
They know that life is beautiful at its core, and so you got to go after it. You can't just sit still. You got to find it around every corner, and every corner, there are so many corners to explore in the life. So
sevens are interesting to me because I feel like there are certain types that it seems like you can find them in one career over others.
Yeah.
I think that it's
one
easy.
city.
Sure, yeah. So wherever there's an area where like
Yeah.
there's one primary industry.
Yeah.
So it seems like, fives are, you tend to think of your engineers, your
Yeah,
programmers, your tech people. Fours, you tend to think of the arts. Sevens are interesting to me in that they can pretty much fit into any professional world.
Yeah.
They just are really enthusiastic about it.
They're Renaissance people.
Yeah.
They know a lot about everything. And so you could stick them in a room with your grandma having tea, and they'd probably find something to relate on.
Yeah.
They're so great to travel with, to have over to your house for dinner. Great conversational partners. They are funny. They're quick to get the humor in things. They're just really engaging people because they absorb so much of life.
Yeah.
On the positive side,
So I'll be honest, at this point, it feels like sevens are in the lead in terms of best Enneagram type.
Traits.
So what's that dark side look like?
Dude, the dark side is it is often hard to get sevens to sit still and go deep on one topic or commit to one relationship. I know a lot of married sevens out there are like, I'm monogamous. And some of them are, depending on their instincts. But for the most part, sevens don't like to sit still. Their huge fear.
Well, we're just going to have to shoot one of our cameramen. So.
My bad. Their huge fear is to be trapped in pain. And that pain doesn't have to be physical pain, like a broken bone or something. It can often be mental pain. It can be boredom. Boredom can be excruciating to a seven. And when they feel like there's nothing new to be learned or had, like with a committed relationship, someone you've known for 10 years, it can be hard for them to want to stick around.
Yeah.
And it can be really hard to get sevens to walk through the process of personal growth. Because you think about unlearning some bad behaviors, dude, you have to go over it and over it and over it.
Yeah.
And sevens are like, I got it. I heard it once. I'm good. And they're quick learners, man. They're astute. They're really sharp. And so it can be, a little bit of an ego trip for them to have to rehearse something to reread again. Sevens are the last people you probably find in like an Enneagram course.
Okay.
They would watch it once and be like, got it, love it, super interesting. I know enough to talk about it at a party.
All the sevens stopped after the drink was made and they got the recipe.
I'm a Marg? All right, next thing.
Yeah, moving on.
Now I can talk about it. Oh yeah, I saw that show. And pretend like they knew everything about it.
Would I be wildly off base to be like, obviously, the current day and age we're living in with social media, YouTube, all these things, is it possible that there's never been a rougher time in history to be a seven with the constant stimulus, the world constantly keeping you on high alert about things you might be missing out on, things you could do, other opportunities or options out there?
I see where you're going with that, but honestly, my gut says I think this is the best time for sevens. Because sevens want to find a way to be creative in what they experience. And so you give them something like a pandemic and they're like, challenge on, baby. Let's find a way to have fun at home. Let's find a way to like road trip it somewhere as opposed to fly. Let's find a way to like make my family room into a theater, or like they have an endless stream of new opportunities to try different things. And I mean, I know some sevens that are just uprooting their whole life at this point. Because why not? Why not? You're home, and so now your home is your playground, and you're gonna revolutionize that shit.
Yeah.
Or move entirely to a new city.
Right.
So
let's get into the directions of moving towards growth and moving towards unhealth or stress.
Yeah.
So what is that going to look like? First, let's start with stress. What are some of those caution signs along the way for sevens to be looking out for?
So sevens, they go to 1 in unhealth or stress. So they move from this fun-loving, inclusive, lighthearted, positive kind of mindset to this strict, controlling, like, I got this, let me do it. I don't need you. I'm the only one capable of getting this done.
Right.
Because they are capable. So when they're stressed out and they kind of feel like maybe people are letting them down or the experience is going haywire, they kind of just take it in their own hands. And they have that one sense of perfectionism and judgmental and kind of coarseness. They go from being fun and lighthearted and to someone you just don't want to be around because you're like, all right, they're just going to go do their own thing and do the whole project by themselves. Cool.
How about that other direction, towards more positivity?
So when they are healthy and dealing with stress and life well, they go to 5. And so 5s are the investigator. Completely different on the outside than what a 7 looks like. 5s love to go deep into particular subjects. Love to sit still for hours. Love to just focus their attention on one thing, pick it apart, become a master of it. And that's when 7s are doing really well. That's what they do. You can find them reading, obscure plays in the corner of their house for 2 days. And you're like, what's up? You doing all right? And they're like, yeah, great. Just happy to be here. Really loving this Dostoevsky book, you know what I mean? Or whatever.
Well, I think of like a friend that you and I have who like deep into their 30s has just suddenly realized he's in love with wine and is just trying to learn as much about wine culture and wine flavors. And it's like become a passion, like well into his adulthood.
And it's a perfect example of 7's tendency for gluttony to have more and more and more of like, especially like a stimulant, be it like coffee, alcohol, whatever, and go, I'm going to appreciate this as opposed to consume it just because it's new and different.
Yeah.
I'm going to get into the complexity of it. I want to appreciate this, not just consume it.
Sevens are interesting in that they sit in that they're on one end of the head triad.
Yeah.
And so they sit next to 6s and 8s.
Yeah.
So what are those wings going to look like for our 7s?
Yeah. Well, before I even mention the wings, I think it's interesting that you say that they're on the head triad, and they don't get a lot of credit for that. They are thinkers. They just introvert their thinking and their anxiety. So all the head types deal with fear and anxiety. 5s extrovert it, 6s pretend it's not even there, and 7s just stuff it down. And so when you have a 7 with an 8 wing, you get way more of that edge, way more of that spice. They're called the realist because they mix that zest for life with what actually works. They'd be a great boss, someone who would start a company, because they're adventurous like a 7, but they have the real world practicality of an 8. So you could see them, having different careers, being in charge of something. Whereas the 7 with the 6 wing is far less concerned with career ladders.
Yeah.
They're called the entertainer. They're fucking hilarious most of the time. They're really funny people.
Yeah.
They're just quick and they get the joke and they can find humor in it pretty much anything. They're the people that would be like at the bar telling a story of how their trip to Zimbabwe went completely backwards and they got stuck in customs and they're just going on and on for an hour holding court because they have all of that relational ability of the 6.
Yeah.
And their concern is with making people have a good time.
I can say as a bartender, I feel like 7s are either your best friend as a bar customer or your worst barfly.
Yeah, you're like, please.
I feel like they are either the regular who are bringing a good time, elevating the energy of the people around them, buying rounds, getting other people to buy rounds, or they're just the guy who will not go home.
It is tough because a lot of 7s don't age well. So for a 7 to age well, they really have to learn how to reel it in and read the room. 23-year-old 7s are great, but a 43-year-old 7 is like, okay, Dad, can you calm down a bit? Like, this is my sleepover. I don't need you to like tell the story for everybody. It, like everything, there's a spectrum.
For sure. Well, thank you so much, man. For those of you at home, the Margarita, super easy to make. Order it at a bar. Remember, if 1 is good, 2 is probably better, but 3 or 4 and you're on your own.
That's enough.
Anyway, cheers. Enjoy.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us.